What's the story of the combination of the Tuesday election results from last week and the end of the government shutdown? How do you connect those two events in appraising where we are at this moment?
Yeah, I think it's a story of whiplash and a party that can't seem to have a good run for a little bit of time. I think frustrations in Washington right now, what I'm hearing from a lot of Democratic staffers and some members is about the shift from celebrating an election and really looking to the fact that I think moderates across the nation had a win for Democrats. We can talk about Mamdani all we want and how electrifying that is, but as a volume, moderates had a great win. And then in that same breath, there are moderates who are now the bane of a lot of the party's existence because of how they voted to end the government shutdown. And so I think it's looking at the flashpoint of how moderates, who I often describe as the silent majority in America and also in the Democratic Party, are shaping the narrative of how the party's going to run. I think to a greater impact than a lot of the progressives. I think it's easy to talk about the Mamdanis and the mayor of Seattle's race and things like that. But I mean, moderates really show they hold the quiet power and they can kind of shift and move the party as they want.
Rich, you agree that that's the main through line, is that moderates did well in the election, with the exception of New York City, and moderates in Seattle and moderates carried the day for the Democrats in ending the shutdown?
Yeah, maybe that's part of it. Clearly, they weren't going to end the shutdown prior to the elections and roil their base, had their base wanting to hang their leaders in effigy. So that was never going to happen. So it's clear the shutdown was going to last past the election. But this was an unsustainable tactic that wasn't going to work in terms of getting the concession they wanted, the extension of Obamacare subsidies that no Republican voted for in 21 or 22 when they initially came online with the Biden administration, weren't originally part of Obamacare. So finally, you had some relatively, and I'll underline the word relatively moderate Democrats saying, okay, this is dumb, we have to give up. I do think it worked for them to the extent they did get the conversation more on healthcare, pretty much the one issue on the planet Earth at the moment where Democrats still have a significant lead over Republicans. So that was good. But in terms of placating their base, yeah, they didn't infuriate them by not shutting down the government the way Schumer did in March, but they're clearly going to infuriate them at some point by reopening the government. And Schumer is bearing the brunt of that discontent.
You see, what happens next? What happens in November, December, January, as we face potentially another government shutdown? Do you anticipate another shutdown, more conflict, bipartisan compromise? What do you anticipate?
I definitely don't anticipate a shutdown. I think folks have learned their lesson. And to Rich's point, what was going to be the outcome? It was always going to be that somebody had to acquiesce, and Democrats were the people most likely to do it. I think Schumer backed himself into a corner when he spoke very confidently early on, and he said, Democrats are winning, Democrats are winning. And I don't think you ever say that you're winning in a shutdown, especially when people on the outside are hurting. But I do think healthcare is the topic and becomes the conversation. And it's great because when we started this year, we all talked about affordability, but that was more from the how do you pay your monthlies, how do you pay your utilities? And now healthcare does get to be at the forefront of that conversation. And obviously the House will do Epstein, and we've got Adelita Grahala back in the House. And there will be things on the sidelines, but I think the base is really saying, okay, well, we did this shutdown experiment. It didn't work, but healthcare still has to be on the table.
Rich, how do you anticipate the next couple months playing out?
Well, I doubt we'll have a shutdown again, just because it's a dumb tactic. It never works. It didn't work here. So they're not going to go that route again. I just think they got nothing, right? They got a promise of a vote in the Senate. They didn't get a guarantee it's going to pass. Obviously, they didn't get a promise of a vote in the House. They didn't get a promise that Trump's going to sign anything. But this is clearly a vulnerability for Republicans, and it has been for a very long time. They don't have a legitimate alternative, a consensus party alternative to Obamacare. And this is about 12, 15 years too late coming up with one. But I think they will, if they're smart, at least offer some ideas and put them on the floor, even knowing they're not going to pass, to make the point, we have a better way, we have an alternative to deal with the spiraling costs, which Obamacare was supposed to address, and instead is made worse.
Yeah, the system's not great. We have a ridiculous system, and it's a historical accident. After World War II, employers started offering health insurance as a way to compete for workers, and some people have that. Some people have Obamacare, Medicare, Medicaid, veterans. It's like just this patchwork. I get a sense from talking to people on two-way and around the country, the public mood against the flaws in the system, particularly the fact that people have insurance, but it doesn't work for them. Deductibles, co-pays, way too high, and just out-of-pocket expenses too much. What's your view of whether the public mood is now at a breaking point to the extent that Republicans will have to come up with a plan or pay a price? Yemisi.
I think they need to come up with a plan. I'm not sure they will. I've said they've had to come up with a plan for a very long time, and they never have. One, is a very complex subject. Two, they're political downsides to whatever you want to do, and it's very hard to get a party consensus. So I'm not sure there'll be a unified plan. I think it'll be kind of stasis on this issue, and if a Democrat wins in 2028, he or she will likely feel he or she has a referendum to go even further towards a government-run system.
But Rich, before we switch to Yemisi, do you agree that the public mood is at kind of a boiling point that we haven't seen in a long time on this, or not?
I don't know whether I would say that, but it's clearly playing into the affordability concerns, which is the primary issue. And this is, besides winning the races, I think this is one good outcome for Democrats. It's not, Trump the authoritarian. It's not no kings. It's not the White House renovation. It's none of that are driving voters.
Yeah.
And that represents Trump's main vulnerability. It's prices.
Yeah. Yemisi, what do you think about the public mood on this now?
I agree with Rich. It's not a democracy focused issue here for a lot of the public. It is affordability. And one thing I think Democrats are going to do a much better job of is talking about the faults in Obamacare. I don't think you have this entire shutdown experience without coming at the end of it and saying, okay, there are issues with how much we have to heavily subsidize Obamacare. And for a very long time, it used to be kind of this foundational piece of legislation that we all said, oh my gosh, we're so proud of it. We got so many folks on healthcare. And now I think we can actually talk out loud a bit about the cracks in it. Before, it just felt like we can't attack Obamacare. Yeah. We have to protect it because so many people want to do repeal and replace. Well, now let's have a conversation about reform. And I think the folks moving into 2028 are actually going to have pieces of a plan here to help support Obamacare, or what does healthcare look like past Obamacare?
Right. So you approach this more from the kind of competent right of the party or center of the party to say, what are the flaws in it that are not working? Isn't the energy in your party now with the Sanders AOC wing that says the flaws with Obamacare is it's not single payer?
Yeah, I mean, the energy and the loud voices is always going to be with Bernie and AOC. The solutions are never with them, though. If the solutions were with them, then they would have a higher passage rate of bills in the House and the Senate.
Yeah. Rich, does the Republican Party mythical plan that you've been rooting for a while, is that going to be pure market oriented, or do you think they'll say we need to spend more too?
might say we need to spend more, but it'll be generally market oriented. And this is the big debate over prices, big debate over affordability in New York City. Are things not affordable because we've had too much regulation and policies that are too socialistic? And we need to pull back from that, or do we need to double down on that, right? Mamdani's answer is we need to double down. And that's the left of the party, of the Democratic Party's answer across the board. And Republicans need to make the case, and I think it's a good one, that no, the areas in public life where we've seen the highest price increases, higher education, although that's abated somewhat now, medical care, they're the most regulated or subsidized aspects of the economy. And if you actually let the market work, one of the great geniuses of the market is it tends to deliver better products at lower cost if you don't suppress that dynamic. So that's the broad case I'm hoping they're going to make.
You ever notice those creepy ads that pop up on your phone and seem to know exactly where you've been, what you've bought, even maybe what you've been talking about? You probably asked yourself, is my phone monitoring me? The truth is, your smartphone is constantly collecting and leaking data without your knowledge and without your consent. Every day, your phone builds a detailed profile of your life, your location, your habits, your interests, even the people you communicate with. And that information is funneled into an invisible marketplace where it's tracked, analyzed, and sold off to the highest bidder. It's not just something that's annoying, it's invasive. And it's happening all the time. But now there's a new solution, the Upphone by Unplugged, because it's very different. It's designed to protect your privacy from the ground up. No hidden trackers, no data mining, just a secure, streamlined smartphone experience that puts you back in control. Whether you're texting, browsing, or using apps, the Upphone ensures your personal information stays personal. It's the phone for people who are done being watched. Ready to take back your digital privacy? Visit unplug.com/Mark and get $25 off a phone case with the purchase of a phone. Again, go to unplug.com/Mark, because your life, your data, it should be yours, not theirs. Plus, from Election Day through Veterans Day, Unplugged is honoring those who serve. All veterans and active duty military get $175 off any Upphone, and they're donating $50 from each purchase to support Veterans Charity Valor Mission Project. Learn more and order your Upphone today at unplug.com/Mark. Get this today.